Buenas tardes. What's going on, everybody? F1 fans, it's hitting the apex here on the Five Reasons Sports YouTube channel. Shout out to everybody who watches, all two of you that are in the chat right now. Big shout out to Evan and Jack. What's going on, fellas? Got a lot to talk about today, but before we do that, we are joined here by my amazing pit crew of Fish and Moni Leudo. What's going on, my people? How are you?
Hey Jazz, hi Vish.
How's it going?
Hey.
Hey guys, hi Jack. What's in the chat? Hi Evan. Hi Jack.
As you can see, Moni's sounding a lot better, feeling a lot better.
Guys, we're climbing up. We're climbing
Yep.
back.
Climbing back up to the top. Listen, we got a lot to go over today. We want to start off by giving a special shout out to Max Verstappen, as he was named Formula One world champion. As you see, Jack's got the bottles ready to pop off. So, but before we do that, let's go ahead and give a shout out to our sponsor, You Break Will Fix. Before I forget, because you know how it is, man. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at F1_5 Reasons, right here on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. And You Break Will Fix. It repairs damaged wheels from curb rash, cracks, or bends, all under one roof with in-house powder coating, machining, and polishing. They also offer new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, such as Vossen, Forgiato, Fuel Off-Road, and more. They now even offer no credit check financing up to $5,000 for a new set of wheels, fast turnaround times on all repairs, and they even provide loaner wheels in many cases. You Break Wheel Fix is your total automotive wheel solution, located in North Miami, right off of Biscayne Boulevard and Northeast 146th Street. Check out some of their great work across all social media platforms, from Instagram to Facebook, at You Break Wheel Fix. That's the letter U, Break Wheel Fix, or online at youbreakwheelfix.com. You can even give them a call, 305-748-0112. That's 305-748-0112. And schedule your appointment today. You Break Wheel Fix, changing the way you see wheels. Boom. Boom. Max Verstappen, world champion. Talk to me. Talk to me, guys. Talk to me. You guys, let's kind of give your thoughts on how dominating his performance has been, because the season's not over yet. How dominating his performance has been so far in, I mean, obviously not all 18 races, but quite frankly, he's been unbelievable. Anybody want to kind of chime in on that? Go ahead.
I will clear the floor for our resident Red Bull fan here to let her have at it.
All right.
Well, I mean, what can I say? Congrats to Max. Congrats to Red Bull. I think that we can all agree that Max has had a fantastic season. You can't call it perfect, but nearly. He's done very well, except for the few times that he hasn't. And can't really say it's much of a surprise. I don't think anyone in the Formula One world is very surprised with this. No one. But I mean, I don't want to get into it too much, because I know we're gonna talk about it a little bit more in a minute. But I did think it was a little underwhelming situation going on, with this championship. But I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, Vish. It was a little underwhelming because, we weren't too sure, and obviously we'll talk about this a little bit later. The Leclerc penalty kind of paved the way for him to win that championship in Japan this past weekend. But we'll definitely get into that in a little bit. But underwhelming or not, I guess a better word was anticlimactic, right? Like at that point, when he even he felt kind of weird when he figured it out. That they put him in that chair, and he's like, I feel so alone here. I don't know if you guys caught that part, but when they sat him down in the championship little room, he was with a big screen. And he had like a king's chair or whatever. He was sitting on it, and he's like, "This is awkward. I'm out of here." And he walked out. He's like, "This is weird. I feel I'm so alone in here." And he walked out. And he went back to go sitting with Checo and Leclerc. So congratulations to him. Yeah, I mean, he's dominating. He's the best driver right now on the circuit. I know I know the Lewis Hamilton fans will be like, "Oh, Hamilton's the best." Yeah, he is the best ever. He's the GOAT. But this year and last year was tough. It was tight. But this year, Max Verstappen was definitely the best driver in the world in Formula One. Vish, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say about that. Actually, if you recall back, it's hard to remember now. Like, it was not the fastest car at the end of the year. The Ferrari was faster and it was unreliable, and they were dropping points. And then he just, won every race after that. It was over. But, so there was, once he hit his mark, then it was kind of done. So I mean, that's pretty much as dominant as it can be, especially considering all the reliability. It's hard to DNF for a bunch of races at the beginning and then win the championship this easily. So he dominated the field.
Yeah, that's just how good he was when he was reliable, when the car was reliable, when he was just kind of pushing it the whole time. I mean, he was unbelievable. Even when he didn't win, even when he didn't sit on pole, because Leclerc won a lot of poles this year, and it was just that car was just too good in the actual race, right? So where they didn't perform in the polls and qualifying is where they performed in the race. I mean, and even then, he was still probably P2, P3 when he didn't qualify on polls. So um, this is an interesting question, though, that I want to pose to you guys. What's it going to take, right? What's it going to take for someone to come up and challenge him? Because we all thought this was the year that Leclerc was really going to be able to challenge him in that Ferrari. As you mentioned, Vish, it was a faster car at the beginning of the year. Um, they were having some reliability issues, but also some strategy issues, right? Some strategic issues were really hindering their championship push, I guess you could say, not only in the constructors but in the drivers as well. So is this a point where someone else is going to have to challenge him? Can Ferrari kind of do something to be there next year? Who is it that's going to be able to challenge him? And is there anybody that can unseat him or give him a run for his money? We'll start off with you, Vish, on that.
Yeah, I think the answer is actually Mercedes. They have to put a more competitive car because they're the only one with the driver that can challenge him. To be honest, like for Ferrari, Leclerc is good. He ain't Max good, and that means he needs a better car than the Red Bull. I can't see Ferrari coming out with a better car. They can close the gap, which hopefully they will, so it's more competitive. But like, he's not going to take a car that's slightly slower and win with it over Max. So the only driver is Hamilton that can actually compete with him, which means the Mercedes needs to get a lot better. We're going to talk about the catering budget. You're all making jokes. That's cheating. So we're going to talk about that in a bit. And by the way, just so everyone's clear on the catering budget, some Dutch newspaper just made that up to try and cover for Max because Red Bull cheated. But we'll talk about that later in the show. So like, there's no one else has even reported that except somehow they got the scoop in the Netherlands. That's legitimate. But anyway, back to the question that Chaz asked. It's got to be Mercedes because it's just they have the overall package, right? Ferrari's got too much stuff that goes wrong. You're talking about Red Bull and Max at the top of their game.
There's too much drama in Ferrari.
It's just like last year, right? We can talk about all the controversies and all. It basically ended up in a tie, right? The only Ferrari would never be able to be consistent enough to compete with Mercedes on that level, and that's when Red Bull's at their peak. Mercedes has the efficiency and the driver to actually compete with them. One of their drivers.
What do you mean? Just one?
The other one sucks, but it's a whole other story. So I don't see any way Ferrari doesn't, even if Leclerc, let's say, gets better as a driver and they come up with like a car that's right there with Red Bull, Ferrari's strategy will then screw it up. Like it's going to take so much for them to compete. I think it's got to be Hamilton and Mercedes. Like
Bless you.
That is the only thing I can compete with Max right now.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you that I don't know if Ferrari has the reliability or the reliability can get fixed, like you mentioned, Vish. It's more about the people that they have behind the scenes, the strategists, those kind of people that when the race gets tough, right? When it gets going and it gets tough, and they've got to be smart and they've got to have the right strategies in place. they leave a lot left to be desired there when it comes to that. And I don't know if anybody's going to come in and be better than Adrian Newey, basically, right? I mean, that's at the end of the day, you need to have a person like that as well. Binotto
Yeah,
is
I
just not
think
getting it done.
that's done though. Like he designed this car, so like he could leave right now. It's not gonna. He has already built that Red Bull, and now this is that generation of cars. So everyone else is gonna try to catch up.
Yeah.
So I don't
I,
know that.
I don't know if that's going to make a difference, anyways. But it's going to be interesting. Moni, he mentioned Mercedes. Who do you think, whether it's team or whether it's driver, that could possibly challenge him? Is it still Leclerc? Is it somebody else? Is it Lewis Hamilton? Is it the only one that could challenge Max is Max himself, right? I don't know. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, um, earlier in the season, I would have put my money on on Leclerc. I would have, but I know. I mean, with everything that we've seen that has happened to Ferrari and that has happened to their drivers, I have to agree with Vish. I just don't see it. I don't see it happening for Ferrari, and I don't see it happening for Leclerc. Um, I feel that for both Ferrari and for Ferrari and Leclerc, um, as you mentioned, ¿cómo se dice? Like sometimes les falta como el coraje. Like when you're under that big pressure, that you're just you have two choices on the table and you just have to decide. And number one, I feel like they've been struggling so much with that pressure and they just make the wrong choice. So I don't know that I wouldn't feel comfortable saying that Leclerc could step up for next season. um, and I wouldn't feel comfortable saying that he would be a big contender to unseat Max. So I'm gonna have to agree with Fish, and I feel like Mercedes would have a little bit more of that in comparison to Ferrari. Um, and to be honest with you, I feel that the only driver in Mercedes who would have the guts and the experience and just the, like, you could say somewhat of like the whole package to achieve such a thing, that is to unseat Max Verstappen. I feel like it would be someone like Lewis Hamilton. Certainly not Russell. No hate, no hate as much as other people on this panel towards Russell,
Are you
but
taking shots at me?
not so much hate. But I just don't see that either. I don't see that happening either. So if I had to pick, I would say Hamilton.
Do you think there's anybody else that, let's just say all things were equal, right? So let's say that this is a kind of a question. If you put Leclerc in an equal car, that he still is going to not be better than Max, right? We can agree on that, right? Max is
Yes.
still the better driver.
Yeah,
If you put Hamilton in an equal car, that's a
that's competitive.
competition, right? That's
Yeah.
competitive. Is there anybody else that you can see? Would you put, if you put like, I hate to say it, if you put like a Fernando Alonso, if you put like some of some of these guys that have even a Vettel, or some guys that have have won world titles and have shown that they are some of the best racers, best drivers in the world. If you put them in a car that's as competitive, will they be able to challenge Max, or is it just Lewis Hamilton?
It's just Hamilton.
Yeah.
Everyone else needs a better car.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
mean,
If everybody has a better car, right? If they have the best, if they're on par with the Red Bull.
I mean, I think this is actually a good discussion as we talk, because it's kind of funny how quick Verstappen's become part of the scenery. He is elite, not just like a champion. He is better than some of these other champions that you're mentioning. I mean, a good example is Alonso was coming off of winning 2 titles at Renault, went to McLaren. Hamilton beat him as a rookie. And that's why Alonso left McLaren immediately, right? That's right. Who Max is able to challenge, that level. So when you start talking about guys that won in the past or talented drivers, this is another level. Like Leclerc is awesome, but Max is on like a different tier.
Yeah.
That there's eras in Formula One where no one's been on that tier that Max is on. The fact that Hamilton's also there is why we could have something competitive. But
Oh,
when
Jack
old man
brings up a
Hamilton
good point.
hangs up his race shoes, Max might just
Yeah.
run over the whole competition for a while here.
Although Jack brings up a great point, right? Like Hamilton's what 36, 37 years old now. Your coordination, your reflexes tend to kind of slow down a little bit, whereas Max is what 25, 26 years old. I mean, there's a significant age gap difference there. I know that experience plays a lot into it, and understanding how to be one with the cause, as you know douchey as that sounds. But the truth is that age might play a role as well in how good or how bad, not how bad, but how good Hamilton can be at this point, and how competitive he can be against Max. I think he can still be very competitive, but I still think Max has the edge over him right now because of that. It's the age thing. It's not necessarily anything else. I don't know if
It's
it
the
makes sense.
car. Unless
You
we're
still
arguing
think
that
so,
over
huh?
the off, unless we're arguing over the offseason that Lewis just lost it entirely.
Well, I'm not saying he lost it
I mean, I don't want
entirely,
to
but
relitigate the end of last year, but they were down bad in the championship, and he won every single race until the last one, like for the last 4 races. So I mean, it's fun. Like what happened over the summer, we got brand new cars, or not over the summer, over the winter, we got brand new cars. So I know it's stupid. We're arguing when he's behind George Russell right now, so it's kind of like what happened there too, right? Because they're in the same car. Obviously, there's been let's say some fortuitous bounces for that douchebag. So
yeah.
I
But the
I
truth is, though, Max Lewis has made some mistakes as well, right? Has he
right,
not?
yeah, I
Yeah.
know he has
So
some of
I
them. Some of them out of forcing things because the car sucks. Some of them are frankly rookie mistakes he shouldn't make. But he did that last year too.
right.
So did Max. I mean, that's what happens. Like you're not perfect.
So you don't think that at some point, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate about it, right? So you don't think that just at some point, Max, and I'm just going back to what Jack said, right? Reflexes, your your age. Father Time is undefeated, right? As cliche as that is, it is, right? So like, and I understand what happened last year, or, two seasons ago, whatever the case was, but even year over year, you tend to kind of diminish, or you tend to kind of, not be as quick on your feet, as reactive, um as not as gassed as you would be as an older person. God knows I'm feeling it, but that's for another story, right? That's a different story there altogether. But the point is that, as you get older, your play starts to diminish a little bit, right? Your play on the court, your play on the field, your 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 reflexes, your reactions behind the wheel, are a little bit different. Maybe not for a person that's going 50 miles an hour on the expressway every day, but for a person that's going 200 miles an hour, it might be a
So
little bit different. So how does that is that going to play into it right now,
I mean,
going into next year?
age. I mean, I I see where you're coming from, and I understand how the age gap might play a bit of a role. But in my opinion, that's more of like a more random external factor. I don't I don't I don't think that age is going to be it would be is going to be or would be as much of a deal breaker. Let's say in like a competition between Max and Lewis. I see where you're coming from, but I just don't see it as much of like a deal breaker.
Vish?
yeah, I mean, I think Jack is right. It does diminish over time, but I think first of all, he's not that old.
No,
Um,
he's not. He's not
and
old.
the
He's not
second,
old.
and
All right,
yeah,
he's
he's
not
not
old.
like he's not Fernando Alonso old, um, who's still, by the way, signing multi-year contracts and stuff. But
Right.
but the other thing is he keeps himself. I mean, Jack made fun of him being a vegan earlier. He keeps himself in incredible shape and
Right.
is basically it's almost like a Tom Brady equivalent where he's just like everything is geared towards doing this one thing, like the way he trains, the way he eats all year round, where
The way
15, 20 years ago they'd get out of the car and light up a cigarette. So
the way he has breakfast, lunch, and dinner with referees, but that's neither here nor there. No, but I get what you're saying.
So I think his
I was just
body is.
playing
I think no,
devil's
I
advocate on
think
it.
it's a fair point, and it will diminish, and maybe it has a little bit, but he's in good enough shape where it's going to be so far at the margins that, he's a better driver than he was 4 or 5 years ago. Just knowing how to manage the tires, manage race situations, knowing when to push to eke out the laps. Like, that's still the thing that he and Max can do that you don't see other drivers do, where it looks like they're cruising around a tight race and then like, all right, we need 3 laps at like as fast as you can go. And the next thing you know is a 10-second gap. Right. I mean, that's because they're managing. That's a skill, and a lot of drivers can't do that. And frankly, we've seen both Ferrari drivers struggle with that a little bit, where like, my tires are gone like 15 laps into the race.
You saw the pictures, right? You saw the pictures.
Yeah, like, that's not managing your tires, and that's a skill too. That's not really, reaction time. And Hamilton's great at that. Max is great at that, and that's an increasingly important part. So it will have. There's going to be a time where we're going to look at Hamilton driving, probably in the near future, and be like, he doesn't have it anymore.
Right.
But I don't think we're there yet. Although it would be very hard to tell in this car.
Yeah.
If he legitimately meaning, as Jack said, not having experimental parts, not, George Russell like being 30 seconds back and be like, oh, lucky me, safety car, and then ending up in front of him, but actually like Russell starts beating him consistently, like Russell's faster than him, then you'll know.
Right.
But like, if you look at like they do pace analysis, like, he's been significantly faster, but the points don't show it. Which, by the way, happened once in McLaren too, when he finished behind Jenson Button, because he just basically just had a bad luck that year, and I think we're there.
Moving forward, because I know we kind of got off on the tangent about it, but it was worth speaking about because I think it's it definitely is a main topic today. Max Verstappen, champion.
Well, it's also, I mean, we gotta understand, there's not a great chance for Mercedes to close this gap enough for Hamilton. Like, there's a very good chance we're here next year being like, Max won again easily.
Yeah, of course.
There's a big gap there, and with the budget cap, it's not easy to make it up.
Oh, speaking of budget cap, well, let's talk about the Japanese GP, right? Because we really didn't get to speak about it, obviously, this weekend.
We decided to sleep.
It was an absolute debacle of a race. So much crazy crap going on, and of course, they didn't even get. The rain played a huge factor in the race itself. Only were able to get down, I think it was 50. How many laps did they get in?
28.
I'm sorry, it was 54 as a total, right? Or
yeah, they barely did.
They got 28, so they got over half. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Vish. Yeah, we talked about number of laps is how many points you get, so it's half points. Isn't it a half? It's half points for less than half. If you get past the halfway point, then you score full points, or does that? Or the halfway point just means that the top 10 get points? Because that was the confusing part to me.
Yeah,
I didn't know if that changed.
So what happened is they tweaked the rule after Spa last year to avoid that situation where you drive 2 laps and get half points.
Right. Okay.
What they did is they wrote it incorrectly. This is typical
Shocker.
F1 BS.
Shocker.
And the way that they wrote it was that if you take the checkered flag under green conditions, you get full points regardless. So everyone thought this was a half-point race because the rule was, as long as if they did 75% or more of the scheduled laps, you get full points. Okay. Otherwise, you get half points. So everyone's like, this is a half-point race. We're not getting to 75%. They barely did half.
Right.
But then the steward's like, no, it's full points. Read the regulations. Then if you read the regulations, it says you take the checkered flag. So technically, they're gonna fix it in the off season, of course.
Unbelievable.
But if you read the regulations, they could theoretically start a race, do 3 laps, and if it finishes under green conditions, it's full points right now, the way they wrote the rule. So
right,
which
so obviously gave Max a win, right? It gave Max the championship as well. So.
Yeah, he wouldn't have. I think he would have been 1 point short. Wow. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's academic because obviously, like, he doesn't even have to show up, even if he hadn't clinched it, and it would still be Leclerc has to win every race and get every fastest lap. And Max has to
he could go on vacation right now. And,
so it's academic, but it is I mean, it is problematic when no one, including the teams, knows what's going on with the rules, and
It's
and
typical
doesn't
FIA
understand.
though.
Yeah.
Typical Formula One.
Well, I mean, to their credit, this is how the FIA has always operated, except for the last race last year, which is if that's what it says in the rule books, we're going to enforce it.
Right.
So it says that's what it says. We're going to do it. Like if Hamilton's wings a millimeter cracked open in Brazil, you're disqualified. Vettel can't get a fuel sample out, you're disqualified. Like that's how they always did things until
they didn't.
one time they famously did not follow the letter of the rules. But so I mean that's what they did here. They followed the rule book, but it is bizarre. No, everyone's like this should not be full points, but
Right.
and then if you read the rule,
I was confused.
No, everyone was. The broadcast was. They were like, okay, it's going to be half points. We're never going to get. And then all of a sudden, like they got a clarification. Wait,
Right.
doesn't matter. Once the race finishes, that's that.
And then it was like, oh, only nine drivers get the points, not the whole 10. And in my mind, I'm thinking, who the hell cares if it's all 10 or 9? Like, what are we talking about here? Why are we? Why
Look,
are we
man, there was serious business going down there because our boy Nicholas Latifi grabbed some points.
Finally got some points.
And if they cut that off, he would not have scored.
He would have gotten some points.
So that was a very important factor.
He's
because regardless of what happened at the top, Max was going to win the championship. Right. But Latifi getting points, you can't ruin that, man.
He's finally on top of Nico Hulkenberg.
Yeah, he finally left Hulkenberg down there. I think he pulled even with De Vries, right?
He did. Oh man, that's funny.
Going out on top.
So as we just mentioned, right? It was Max, Leclerc, and Checo. But it ended up being Max, Checo, and Leclerc. We'll get into that right now because I think that. And before we even do that, Jack mentioned a good one. Speaking of debacle, that tractor, that tractor crane being out on the track, and that was a bit of a scare for a couple of drivers, right? I mean, you saw Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, and
that was dangerous. What were they doing there, guys?
Right. And this is the this is the track where literally in the exact same conditions Jules Bianchi died, and they went into this. Like that's why we have virtual safety cars now, actually, because we cannot have cars zipping around the track, and then there it is.
It wasn't even a car; it was a freaking tractor crane,
Right, but basically, the reason the virtual safety car came into play was because of this track.
Right.
Because in wet conditions, they were lifting a car with a crane off the track, and he was driving at full speed and he lost it and died. So, I mean, it's how the hell of this track out of all tracks do you let that happen?
It's unbelievable.
But I also think there's an issue here with and we've seen this increasingly. Obviously, this was red flagged and Gasly did get penalized, which he should have. He was driving too fast for those conditions under red flag. Like, I don't know what he was doing, but we've seen this thing where they don't enforce. Like we always say, like there's a speed limit when you're under safety car or red flag, you're going back to the pits. It's not actually a speed limit. They're measuring your speed between two distances.
Gotcha.
Right? So, and then they do an average speed over that. So we see these cars speed up really fast, slow down, speed up, slow down to try and game the system. Especially under virtual safety car, you see them try to guess when it's going to go out. And they're like, that's dangerous if the track isn't safe. And there's got to be a better way to do this.
Right.
And you see them, they all do that, right? They're all like, I definitely don't want to get stuck in this area when it goes green, so I'm going to go really fast through it, and then I'll slow down on the straight because then that is dangerous. If the whole point is to keep your speed down, there's two ways to get to an average of 50. One is drive 100 for half of it and 0 on the other half, and the other one's to do 50 the whole time. And the 100 and 0 is not safe.
Speaking of penalties. That last lap around the track really kind of changed everything in the podium as well. I know that some people are bitching and complaining about it. Some people say it was the right call. I'm talking about the penalty to Charles Leclerc right there at the end, basically at the end of the race. As Checo was nipping at his heels, he was about to overtake him. Looked like he probably, if they went another lap, he was going to overtake him. However, Leclerc went off the track a little bit, and went around and stayed in front of him because he kind of locked up, towards that turn there. He didn't gain any positioning. He didn't gain any positioning. He kind of stayed in front. However, they gave him the penalty for going off the track, right? For going off the track.
Well, this is where it's
So
this is where
how
it's up into
legitimate?
it.
Yeah, like what should they have given him a penalty? He didn't gain any track positioning. He stayed in P2. Should they have given him that 5-second penalty there?
Modi, do you want to go first?
Well,
It's a tough
listen,
one.
I've been pondering. All right, I've been talking to my pillow about this. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, and I don't know. All right, I feel if we're being politically correct, listen. Okay, I think that Leclerc was very politically correct. He was graceful about the whole thing. He's like, you know what? Yeah, I made a mistake, and I kind of deserve it. But I mean, I don't. I don't want to say that it's a legitimate, but in my opinion, whatever. It's a penalty. He got the penalty. He made that mistake, and he cut. What's the word? What's it called? Can you remind me, Vish?
If I knew what you were talking about.
Like that part of the track.
You cut a corner?
No.
The chicane.
Ese.
The chicane. The chicane.
Eso, chicane. Thank you. Sorry. It'd be late. It'd be real late tonight. Okay, guys. Sorry.
That's all right.
So it looked a little rough, but as you say, Jazz, like I mean, he didn't. It wasn't like a major alteration to the positioning either. So I don't know. It's a rough one, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna go the graceful way out, like Leclerc did. I'm gonna say it was a mistake and deserving of a penalty. I don't know, but it was a mistake, and that's it.
Well, here's my question, right? If it happens in lap 10 as opposed to lap 28, is that still a penalty? Do they, because he didn't lose track positioning, is it still a penalty? You know what I mean?
This is where it gets the languages. It says if you leave the tracking, quote, gain an advantage.
Right,
what does that mean in this instance, right? He didn't gain a spot, which is usually how they interpret it. But
right.
I guess if he had actually made the corner, I don't think Checo would have been able to pass him there.
Right.
I mean, we saw the picture of his tires, though. You can see why he didn't make the corner. He was basically driving slicks at that point. The only reason overall, they sometimes give those penalties and sometimes don't, because how do you determine if he gained an advantage or not? It's kind of, if someone like gains a spot, it's obvious. Yeah, get the spot back, right? But when to hold it, to me, the reason I'm okay with the penalty is that was because it was the last lap, which I don't know if that's the right logic or not, but he essentially took Checo's chance away from passing him.
Yeah.
And so he basically got to hold 2 regardless. And I do look for like at other races, right, going down the road, where I don't think Leclerc did it on purpose. If you look at his tires, that thing was not stopping.
Okay.
But you could easily do it on purpose. If you're right in front of the other guy, you're going into the last corner, it's an overtaking spot. I'm just going to go through it. Right? And then I didn't gain an advantage. So I think the penalty works from that. It'll prevent future abuse down the line.
Right.
And I'm glad that they didn't look at the championship and say, well, we don't want to win like this. We don't want the, because they always want to do the engineer comes on the radio, tells the guy's champion. We didn't get any of that because they didn't even know until the post-race interview.
Right.
So I'm glad they didn't actually use that, because they easily could have said, don't give him the penalty, and then we could have like a big celebration in the next race, like when he finds out he's champion.
In the U.S., and it could have been in Austin. Oh man, that would have been great.
So instead, I'm glad they just said no. He got,
and that would have been like typical Formula One fashion, right?
So I'm glad they didn't use that, because I think for Formula One, the sport, it would have been better if Leclerc finished second, so that way they could, have a clear, like Max winning the championship, which he was going to do anyway, so it's not a big deal. But in a 28 lap race, where they might or might not have waved the checkered flag a lap early, where he got it because the guy in second got a penalty after the race. Like all of that's not the show. So I'm glad they actually just enforced their rules.
And
In
the
a way, I'm
checker
happy
flag
they did
was
that.
the checker flag early, by the way.
So this is
I
where
don't know.
it's confusing.
I kind of felt that it was like, wait a second, did they call it? Is there a checker flag? Is there one more? Is there an extra lap?
Well,
Like,
so
what the
Max
hell's
thought
going
there was
on
another
here?
lap, so he just kept going. He's like, I'm not slowing down until someone tells me. They're like, we think you won the race. We're checking.
What a shit show,
So,
man.
but this is
Oh,
where.
so confusing.
So this is again F1's rules. We're stressed here. So there's two rules. There's the 2-hour rule,
right?
Which is what shortened the race down to 28 laps. The 2-hour rule is once they reach the time limit, they do one more lap. So
don't you have 3 hours to get a 2-hour race in, right? Isn't
correct.
That right. Okay.
Correct. So here's where it went haywire. So everyone was looking at that 2-hour rule because that's one that you usually run into.
Right.
Like, and they ran into it. Was it just the last race? Was it Singapore? Yeah, they ran into it in Singapore, and then the way that works is you hit the timer. When the leader completes that lap after the timer hits 0, they do the white flag, whatever the flag for the next to last lap is.
Right.
So now you know you're on your last lap. Then you go around, take the checkered flag. The 3-hour rule, you just take the checkered flag right at 3 hours, and so technically they hit the 3-hour rule, which no one ever pays attention to.
Right.
So when Max crossed line, like there still has to be another lap.
Oh my God.
So he kept driving fast. Several of the other drivers kept like, I'm not stopping. The race is still going. And then like they finally clarified, no, because of the 3-hour rule, there is no additional laps. It's just at 3 hours, you just finish the lap you're on.
Why do they complicate?
At 2 hours, you do an extra lap.
Why do they complicate their lives, man? Why do they make it so complicated? Oh yeah, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Chandnando cutting a corner before the pit. Whatever. He's gone. He's done. He doesn't care. He's going to Aston Martin next year. Who cares about that guy?
Yeah, so now they're going to look at the 3-hour rule too. So they're going to be changing a bunch of rules after this race. But I mean, lucky the championship wasn't close. All this would have been a shit show.
Oh yeah.
My God.
You'd be like, wait, he got full points for doing 28 laps? Like, what happened?
Do te imagina if something like this happens?
Yeah, if this happened last year, it would have.
Oh my gosh. That would have been crazy. And like I said earlier, like Max didn't even feel comfortable. Like he was like sitting in that chair. It
was so weird.
World champ. It was so weird. We're all looking at it. I saw the replay. I watched the replay of the race, and I'm like, is he the champion? Is he not the champion? He feels awkward. He feels alone in that chair. Like, what's going on? They had no idea. I don't know. It was weird. However,
it was weird, but I will say I think it was more just that their rules are confusing and they need to be clearer. But it does. I do think all of them were enforced correctly, which is good because this is a sport. Again, this is a sport where it's like millimeter. They measure everything, and then so you do need to be very accurate in how you interpret rules. And I think they did that.
Evan, yes, we did notice that. I think he's like, now that I've signed with Alpine, now middle fingers to everybody at AlphaTauri. For sure, 100%.
He is a senior in his last semester. That's what he is.
Absolutely done there. By the way,
or maybe he's preparing to be Fernando Alonso at Alpine.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like we all know that there's a little bit of history between Ocon and Gasly, so that should be interesting. I just want to leave it at that. Drive to Survive season 6 is going to be great.
Spoiler alert, guys, by the way.
Spoiler alert, season 6 is going to be fantastic. Season 5 is probably going to be fun to watch when it comes out. But season 6, with those two, that's going to be interesting.
Speaking of Alpine, we should briefly mention, I know we got another topic, but, they basically seized control of fourth in the constructors this week because McLaren was terrible and they finished 2 cars high up. So that swung right back to them.
Yeah, it did. Oh, geez. Okay. And lastly, but not least, I mean, it's about time we really get into this cost cap. Finally, we know that there was a violation. Okay. Which we kind of spoke about it, right, Vish and Modi? We kind of spoke that they weren't going to say anything until Monday. Like Monday was going to be the day they were going to announce it, and Monday was the day they announced it. They didn't want to take away from Max's championship win, so they did announce that the cost cap violation, Aston Martin had a procedural cost cap violation, and Red Bull had a procedural and overspent minor violation, which means up to 5% over the cost cap, which it sounds like not a lot, but it's a lot of money. And then of course, Red Bull's denying that they exceeded the cost cap at all. So
Well, I think it's important that they're denying it because there's a lot of rumors floating around about this is how they did it and all leaks essentially.
right,
When they're not, they're saying we didn't violate anything. So there's a disconnect between their media lackeys defending them as it was just for stupid stuff, and them actually saying it wasn't a violation. So
can they appeal that violation?
Niégalo, niégalo hasta el final. Niega. That's what Red Bull is doing.
Yeah, deny.
yeah, no, I got it.
I get it.
What do you mean? He's a bilingual king. He doesn't know.
I know, but maybe Jack and Evan aren't. Who knows? I know Gus is.
Gus is good. Gus is good together.
Gus might have just gotten off the boat or something. Shout out to Gus. I love Gus, my best friend.
I met Gus.
He's the man. You did met.
Yeah, I did meet Gus.
That's right.
We won't talk about that game. So
yeah, no, we won't talk about it.
It's been a long season.
We spoke enough about it. Yeah. So.
Yeah, so let me just walk through kind of what happens from here.
What happens to Red Bull and Aston?
Well, so right now we don't know. They're saying, so first of all, they are saying they submitted books that were compliant. Right. So they did not. So they're saying essentially we were caught off guard, like we didn't expect this. And I guess we should talk about Aston Martin and Williams actually. So their procedural violations are generally like you didn't fill out a form correctly, or in Williams' case, they submitted the paperwork late. And so they already got fined for it. And Aston Martin did some other procedural thing. So the oversman, as Jack says, up to 5%, which if it is, I mean.
By the way, Evan, we got to talk to you, man.
He manages at a hell house, so he's got to have some.
Yeah, we got to talk to you about that. We're finally getting ready. But anyways, I digress.
Yeah. So as Jack said, it's just up to 5%. So obviously if they're at like 4.9, that's a significant money. If they're at 0.00001, it's changing your couch, right? So it could be anywhere in there. Well, OJ reference.
Oh,
here we go.
All right.
So there's essentially two options now. The first option is if the FIA and Red Bull come to some kind of penalty agreement. They can both agree to do that. Red Bull has to admit guilt and then can't appeal, and it's just whatever the punishment is, they have it. Now, the key point of that is that does limit the penalties that they can receive, including they cannot get a points deduction as part of that agreement.
Okay.
That's not an option. It is an option for what they call a minor violation, which is what they have. You can get points deductions, but not if they go into this agreement. Now, for the agreement, Red Bull and the FIA both have to agree to it.
Gotcha.
So, but now for Aston Martin, almost 100%, they'll do the agreement, fine them, and be done with it, right? But,
Red Bull.
Yeah, Red Bull's gonna fight this.
Well, I don't know. I think Red Bull would 100% agree to plead guilty and take, because there's no points penalties.
Oh, right.
Because this is, keep in mind, this is last year.
But right
10-point penalty to Max, and he's not the champion. So they cannot afford a points penalty. So they would do it. I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
It would be kind of dumb of them to fight it.
Yeah, it does. Well, again, the FIA also has to agree to do this. So it's not just them. It's called an accepted breach agreement.
Yes.
So, but they both have to agree.
It's a plea bargain.
Yeah, it's essentially plead guilty and we'll give you a lighter sentence.
Yeah.
But the FIA has to agree to do that. I don't know if politically they can be seen to be cutting a backroom deal with Red Bull for last year's results.
True. Man, that's a good
point.
Maybe
they will, but so there's that. Then if both
I'm dying.
Trying to do serious points here. Jack's just throwing me off my game. But,
facts, bro. Facts. That's awesome. I love it. Okay,
Jack. So if either Red Bull or the FIA does not agree to do this accepted breach agreement, then it goes to a board called the Cost Cap Adjudication Panel. Has 6 to 12 members on it. They vote on innocence, or they weigh the evidence, vote on innocence or guilt. If guilty, they can impose penalties. These are the options. and they can do any of these or all of them or whatever. Public reprimand, which like that's like
shame.
Yeah,
Shame.
basically. Deduction of constructors championship points.
Nothing with me either.
Deduction of drivers championship points, which is obviously the big one, because even if you take 10 points away from Max, he loses the championship from last year. Suspension of one or more stages of a competition, excluding the race. So basically that means you can't do FP1 or something.
Right.
Limitations on aerodynamic or other testing. So, time, they're part of the caps are like your time in the wind tunnel is limited, so they could shrink that down further, and then reduction of the cost cap for future years. So if everyone else is at like 140, we could say Red Bull's at 130 or something.
Right.
So those are the options, and then if it goes to that panel, then that's appealable by Red Bull, so they can
Gotcha.
they can then appeal it. So the whole point of the agreement is to avoid the long process.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting, though. You bring up a great point about them.
This is gonna. I don't know. I see a really. I don't know if messy is the right word, but I'm also thinking about the precedent that this might set, at least on behalf of the FIA. Like, you've got a very angry community behind all of this going on, and it really makes you think about whether the FIA is going to stand up and say, no, I'm sorry, but we kind of have to like punish you guys. Yeah. Sorry, like there's no other way around it, because at the end of the day, there's going to be some type of precedent that's going to be set. And this is going to be like, in my opinion, this is going to be a very important moment in Formula One overall as a sport, So especially when you start talking about financials and everything, then you don't want to get too messy with financials in Formula One, given the sport's history with bad financial situations. So I don't know. I really don't think the FIA is going to go like too easy on Red Bull, but I don't say.
Yeah, it's going to be a tricky thing. That's going to be a tricky thing. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see what. I mean, is angry? Who's angry? Only Ham fans. No one else has.
So that's not accurate. All the other 9 teams did not overspend the cap, and this is a problem for many reasons. One is they got an unknown advantage, right? I mean, I think it's fair to say that. And I know there's, again, I referenced this earlier, some Dutch newspaper immediately said it was for catering to kind of make it look like it wasn't important. Even if it was, if you think about how a budget works, and I'm shocked how financially illiterate people writing about Formula One are. That's what I learned this week. But if you're running a budget, if anyone's ever like managed to a budget, and this is your cap, you have to account for everything under it.
Yeah.
Let's say we're all have the same cap. We all have $10 to spend.
Right.
Both of you are like, okay, I got to get food and housing. And I'm just like, I'm going to spend it all on food and then just go over for the housing. And we said food is the only thing that really matters. I still got an advantage. I had to spend more money on food because I went over on the housing. So for them, if they spent on catering, and that's what not that I don't believe that for a second, although it did give us a lot of great memes over the last few days. I did enjoy the lulls, but I don't think that's actually what happened. I think it's just when you only get one Dutch source on something, it is probably BS, just putting it out there. But even if it was true, if every other team had to put that into their budget, that was less money left to spend on the car, on the development. So that is actually not trivial, as much as people are joking about it. That matters. And the stuff they're talking about, like, oh, we get COVID impacted, every team was.
Yeah.
When you manage a budget, you put in buffers for these things. So, and it's worth of noting, Red Bull's not the one saying this. It's literally Max fans that are saying this. Like, Red Bull saying we didn't violate crap. I don't know what you're talking about. So, So how does a Dutch newspaper know how they violated it when Red Bull's saying they did it? This is what makes absolutely no sense. So here's the challenge, right? Moni hit the nail on the head here. This is supposed to be a deterrent. If you don't come down hard on them, if I'm Mercedes right now, I'm like, we got 4 races left in this year. We're screwed anyway. I'm going to go spend $100 million on next year's car right now. I'll go over the cap. What the hell do I care?
Right. That's true. because you know that you're just going to get a slap on the wrist.
But even
Nobody's gonna care.
if, because one of the things people have pointed out, which you could definitely do, is you could hit them hard on the constructor side, right? Because they finished second, 250 points clear of Ferrari in third. So you could hit them hard on the constructor side without taking Max's title away. The problem is no one gives a shit.
Yeah, it's true.
They don't care. And right now, if you're a Mercedes, I can overspend my cap and have a much better car next year, and you're going to throw me out of the Constructors' Championship? I don't care. What am I going to finish in third place? What the hell do I care? Yeah. And the real problem with this rule is it impacts 3 teams exactly. 4, I guess, technically, if Aston Martin's actually going to spend money. But Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull are the only ones that they could spend 10 times the cap and not feel it. So you can't fine them because who cares? Right? If you find Haas, it's like crap.
Poor people, man. Poor Haas, man.
Right? They don't have money, but these teams are. Red Bull makes billions of dollars every year. Like, they don't care if you fine them. There's no fine that's going to hurt them. Right. So it has to be a sporting penalty to actually matter. That's for all the teams at the top.
Right.
Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull will cheat over and over again if all you're going to do is fine them.
Yeah. 100%.
And the reason you go after the driver's points versus the constructor's points is the driver's points matter even if you don't win, because drivers want records. So all of a sudden they lose those. There's incentives in their contract, right? Those matter.
Right.
The constructors you know what constructors are good for? If you win the championship, great. Otherwise, you get more money. It's again back to money. Like, second gets more money than third, and they don't care about the money.
Yep.
So
because they got a lot of it already.
Right. If you ask Red Bull, would you rather win the drivers' championship and get thrown out of the constructors, or not win the drivers' championship? They would take getting thrown out of the constructors every time. So would Mercedes. So would Ferrari.
Right.
And so if you start making that the penalty, I mean, definitely Mercedes and Ferrari right now be like, I'll take that penalty for this year. What do I care?
Yeah. Okay.
Let's develop next year's car. So that's the problem. And the other problem is, like, it was so close last year. Even if you do what would probably normally be a slap on the wrist points deduction, it changes the champion. So then it becomes, does that become too much of a penalty because of the circumstance? Because in theory, you would say, if this type of penalty, and again, we don't know the amount, which matters.
Well, hypothetically, though, if they're gaining a competitive advantage by doing that, then of course they should. That it should change it, right? Because if you're gaining that much of a competitive advantage over the other drivers, because your car is that much better because you spent more money than the others illegally, then of course it should affect the driver 100%.
So I feel like I've explained why it's not it's not the food. Here's a good example. Mercedes had to fire a bunch of staff last year to get under the cost cap. Think about how much a salaried employee makes. If you go $1 million or $2 million over, that's 20 engineers or something.
Right.
Like, that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Like, this is not trivial. I'm sorry, it's not. We want to make fun of it. It's not trivial. The thing is, though, I guess the problem with the points deduction, too, is if you make that deduction, it is an uneven punishment because it depends on how you finished, right? Like, you could subtract, like, let's say 50 points deduction for cheating, right? Or for going over the cap. Let's say that's what they decide is fair for drivers and constructors. All right, Max loses his championship. They can do it again this year. He does not lose his championship. Like, right. So it's so hard to do this thing, right?
Yeah.
So there's not a right answer. The right answer was not to cheat in Abu Dhabi last year. They would have gotten away with all this.
And by the way, this is only going to affect them for last year, not this year.
Yeah, this is the 2021 budget, right. Which is why, like, if it was this year's, they'd be fine. They'd be like, "Here's your penalty. We're going to hammer the shit out of you."
If it's a points thing, then Max loses his championship. I don't think they're going to do that. But
no, I guarantee you they're not going to do that. I think they'll probably go after the constructors' points.
Yeah,
because they have 250 points to play with there without impacting anything. So they're going to give them the non-penalty, and Mercedes and Ferrari are going to lose their shit. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's it. Whatever, it is what it is.
This is gonna be like that Jersey Shore scene where Angelina just loses her crap, and everyone's just, all the girls are fighting, and the guys are watching, and they're like, "What the hell is going on?" I'm telling you, Formula One is going to be Jersey Shore for a minute, for a little minute.
I mean, there's not a FIA is just they're in a tough place. I mean, they literally have Ross Braun when the financial regulations came out saying these have teeth. You will lose your championship. So I mean, it's
Oh.
just
Yeah, get out of here.
where
like-
to see that.
They should be called the Jersey Shore from now on.
Yeah, it's a nice little analogy situation.
This is the Jersey Shore United States Grand Prix.
I mean, this is gonna drag for months.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while.
This will come
You
out.
know what?
We'll get a
And
ruling in December.
What's gonna happen is it's gonna drag, and then people are gonna forget about it and not care. So when they come down with a ruling, it's gonna be so insignificant, and they're gonna be like, whatever, and keep moving on. And they're doing it on purpose.
I don't think so, because last year's championship is always going to be there. It's always at the forefront. So
when Snooki falls at shoulder private, I can't.
Can't you leave Michael Massey alone?
Bro,
This is turned into the Jersey Shore show here, man.
Oh my god, this is awesome, dude. I just can't.
I think we should start next episode with Cabs here. Everybody, just Cabs here. T-shirt time. That's it.
Or like when they went to Italy, they're like, taxis on a queen. Taxis on a queen. You remember? Oh, good times. Wow.
Oh man, I can't believe we all watched that stupid ass show.
For real. Rock bottom. Rock bottom as a society.
We've gotten worse.
We've gotten a lot worse. We've gotten a lot worse. No, that was only the beginning, my friend. Only the beginning. GTL. GTL. See, those are good times. Are you kidding me? Those were bad times. The fall of civilization as we know it right there, bro.
Yeah, those people are like congressmen now. So
yeah, no kidding. They make millions and millions of dollars DJing and anyways.
Yeah, so this is gonna just go on. We'll see what happens with it. For the last time there was a big violation was Ferrari using illegal engines.
Yeah,
and they did. Was it? Yeah, they did cut like some kind of backroom deal where they didn't say exactly what the punishment was, but they ended up making Ferrari redo their engine, and by the next race they had no power. So the penalty was that, I guess, but they never actually released what happened, what the violation. Right. We know what it was because people knew that they were cheating with the fuel.
Right.
But they never actually formally confirmed that. So I still think there is a possibility they just do that accepted breach agreement and be like, look, been dealt with.
That's it.
But I think that'll there's already like rampant they favor Red Bull stuff going on. You do something like that, I think it's important they at least run it through the board. But also, like, details matter, right? If they're $5,000 over versus $5 million, those are all in play.
Yeah.
so that does matter a lot when we talk about penalties. If they're marginally over, like, because I think the word minimum, they probably need to rewrite the rules again. Minimum penalty being up to $7-8 million is not exactly minimum.
Doesn't sound very minimum to me.
Yeah, so it does the scale matters. Like, obviously, if they went over by like $500, then taking away a championship would be insane.
Right.
If they went over by $8 million, you might argue they throw all of their drivers and their car out of the championship entirely. Like, I mean, that's really bad.
That is bad. That would be a super advantage. All right, folks. That's it. By the way, obviously, as we all know already, no race this weekend as they get ready to travel all the way across the world.
Coming back here.
Coming back to the States, baby. Coming back to finish off the last half of the 2022 season.
Yes, we get to see a bunch of Europeans wearing cowboy hats. This is our time to shine.
Possibly the huh?
You guys think they shotgun when they come over here? The Europeans?
That they shotgun?
Uh-huh.
What do you mean shotgun?
O sea, like the beer.
I know
Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah.
No, but I'm talking about the fans. Do you guys think that they, they like immerse themselves in like American culture and then like, let me shotgun a Bud Light, and boom, I got a
Yeah, sure. What the hell? Why not? They probably will. They don't know what the hell they're doing, but they'll do it.
Daniel Ricciardo will.
Yeah, Daniel Ricciardo definitely.
Hamilton will ask if it's organic. It's not going to go well.
How do you do this? As he's wearing his clown suit. Anyways, yeah, it's the United States GP, right? Over in Austin, Texas, baby. Next in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now. 2 weekends from now. We get to see them over here at the Circuit of the Americas. So another race in the United States, which is fun to watch. We'll be able to watch it on normal time, as we like to call it, on normal American time, and then they move on to I believe it's Mexico after that. So.
It's my favorite one.
Yeah, the Mexican GP after
Really?
that.
The Mexican GP is your favorite one?
Just
because of Checo?
No, because I love Viva Mexico.
Mm.
I'm not Mexican. But
I know. Correct.
Really? You just gonna do that to Colombia like
I
that?
love Mexico. But no. But don't get me wrong. Like I would never give one.
You're just such a. I mean, this is on tape, right? Like,
No.
We heard you say you wish you were Mexican, which I'm 100% clipping.
Guys, I'm just kidding. Don't listen.
Oh, that's going on the internet now. Just that clip. I
wish I was Mexican, and that's it. Oh man!
Look at this. You're getting called out for not following Jack on Twitter.
Oh, but I didn't even notice. All right, Jack.
He's Sean B. Whatever. That's always replying to us. He's not Jack Daniels.
Mexicolombiana. There you go.
That is a combination we don't need.
Mexicolombiana. No, that's too much, man. That's too much.
Mira.
Yep.
Yeah.
There it is.
Done.
Look at that. Look how responsive we are to our fan.
Nice. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at _F1. I'm sorry, at F1_5 Reasons. We're on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel here every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. As you can see, we've all got our Twitter handles there on the screen as well. Oh my God,
too late, man. This is out there. There's like 4 people watching, so you're blown.
You're screwed. You're screwed now, buddy. Those are our handles right there underneath our names. Make sure you follow us there as well. But also like I said, every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. here on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. And as when we come back next week, and we may have a special guest for you, and we will preview. We will preview the United States GP over at Austin that's coming up right after on the weekend as well. So make sure you keep it locked here for all of that stuff. For Vish and Moni, this has been Hitting the Apex. We'll see you guys next week. Adios.